Hello and welcome to the Newsx Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, this is the budget week. In fact, the budget is going to be presented on a Sunday for the first time. So we all have our work cut out. But today, what we're going to be doing is taking a look at the expectations, what the budget, at least what we would want from the budget, the sectors that need to be marked out, that need help. And of course, the all important question of, will our taxes go up or not? How will it affect our individual pockets as well as the economy? The kind of a message the budget is going to be sending on the economy, that is very important. Joining me on the show today, I have with me Mr. Piyush Doshi. He's an operating partner at the Foundation of Economic Development. He's also got 25 years of experience in the social sector, and he works very closely with the Niti Aayog on various projects. Good to have you here, Mr. Doshi. I have Dr. Ramendra Verma. He's the national sector leader and partner at the Grant Thornton Bharat Limited, Bharat LLP, and he's also been an ex-partner and CEO at KPMG. And Rishi Shah, he's a partner and economist, and he's an economic advisory lead at the CFA Institute, USA. Mr. Doshi, I'll begin with you first. What are your expectations really from the budget that is coming up, and where do you think, or hope rather, that the finance minister would be, focusing on?
Right. So, as a foundation which is focused on economic development, we always have a very long list of what we would like the government to do. But we are also very realistic about what is possible from a fiscal headroom perspective. But there are a few things certainly which we are expecting. Some of them are policy signals and other are concrete measures. In terms of policy signal, what we would like to see in this budget is a continued emphasis on improving ease of doing business by improving our regulatory environment. I think in recent months, starting with Prime Minister's announcement on the Independence Day, that we need to move towards a trust-based regulatory environment. Over the last few months, several reforms have happened in that direction. Government has announced principles for trust-based regulation, and we hope that that momentum is carried forward. And specifically in some areas, we need to push it. Customs duties, for example, and broader import regime, as well as an income tax. So if we can see some reform which will help the life of a taxpayer, not necessarily from the perspective of reducing taxes, I don't think there is much headroom for that currently, but from a perspective of making it simpler and trusting the taxpayer much more. And on the custom side, finance minister has already given indication that we should be simplifying our customs regime so that there are fewer litigation and the importers do not face challenges in bringing in critical input. So those are important things. So this is what I call the brakes measures, right? Getting foot off the brake. From an accelerator measure perspective, which is giving a positive push, we do expect a couple of areas which the government is talking about and give it a push. One is labor-intensive manufacturing. With this EU FTA done, we have a great opportunity to step up our exports in the European region. And therefore, if we can position ourselves even better by some targeted support for the labor-intensive sectors like footwear, leather, some of the food processing areas, we can capture a very large share of the market there, which will more than compensate for the headwinds we are facing in the US until the trade deal is done. So looking for some announcements on that side. Tourism is another big sector where we are punching well below our weight, getting just 1% share of global tourism. Prime Minister has constantly been talking about it. Would like to see a substantial allocation to this sector so that we can create a few world-class destinations where infrastructure is on par with the best. If you would just visit Egypt, a country which has same per capita income as ours, for most of the country, the cities do feel that the infrastructure is similar as our cities, but their core tourist destinations feel world class and they have invested in those, and that has helped them attract 10 times more tourists than similar destinations in a country. So we do need to put money behind some of our classic places, and our quality of places is best in the world. So I'm hoping for some support on manufacturing more broadly, but specifically labor intensive manufacturing and tourism.
Fair enough. I think the main thing is, whichever way, ease of doing business seems to be the buzzword, and attracting more investment seems to be really the need of the hour. Dr. Verma, your first thoughts on what you are hoping the budget would address the factors.
So, my view is, given the situation where we are in a geopolitical, scenarios, lot of things going across, you know, it's not only in one region, US, Europe, China, all the regions we are talking or having some uncertainty around it. So this budget is not an opportunity to be a resilient India. I think we have to identify opportunities for us to grow to the next orbit. That's
Hmm.
that's the place where I see this budget, and I think Dr. Doshi did put across a very, in a cogent manner, how are we helping our MSMEs? And if you see the trade deal which has been done, uh, at the top of it, if you see, what India has got is the benefit for our MSMEs, the textile, gem jewelry, leathers, whereas what we are importing or this thing are affluent categories, car, wines, and so on. The other good part is in the EU FTA, what we are talking about is the mobility of our IT service class, IT industries, as well as education. So these are some things which will happen. But more importantly, I think India has to see how we can use this opportunity to move our MSMEs. MSMEs account for as big as 85% of the GDP in Germany. We are
Hmm.
far, far below it. How can we unlock that potential of MSMEs by including women? I think that's the place where I would be interested. Obviously, there will be issues. Every budget you talk about, whether there will be rate cut, whether it will be custom duty rationalization, all those things will keep on happening. Expectations will be there. I also hope that we continue our momentum on the infrastructure spend. I mean,
Yes.
till last year, we are talking about what is the quantum spend we are doing on the infrastructure. Last, we dipped a bit. I hope we don't dip any further. We continue our focus on our infrastructure because that's what is going to take India to Viksit Bharat 2047.
So yes, I agree. In fact, a lot of people I've spoken to are hoping that there's more, investment on the infrastructure because that sends the right message across also to foreign investors. Mr. Shah, what is your first take on from the budget? What are you expecting?
Right. Thanks a lot. See, on the budget front, I think this is the last decade has been something that the government has followed the rules of efficient accounting, if I can call it. Budget
Hmm.
is no longer a place wherein you talk about policies and all of that. It's a directional spend. The
Correct.
government actually carries out its policies creation throughout the year, and what you actually get in the budget is what kind of thought process is the government really working with. Even if you see whether it's the FTA announcements or the major schemes, they get announced throughout the year, sometimes even a week or 10 days before the budget. So I think what they've actually tried to do over the last decade is to make this as part of an accounting exercise as it happens in most of the advanced countries. So, you keep your macro fundamentals intact. You talk about your fiscal deficits, your, taxation regimes, what is the broad push, what kind of capital expenditure are you going to look for, and you keep it at that. So that is something that this I don't think this budget is going to be any different. You're going to see that push on the capital investment front continue. You're going to see that push for more investments because as much as the world is changing, it also gives you a chance to do something more. With every problem there comes an opportunity, and I think this is being looked at as such by the government, and there's some positive moves. Increasingly, if you look at the FTAs that have been signed, it opens up the economy. It shows that because of the thrust of how the global economy is moving, you have to now become competitive. You have to compete with the larger world. I think the one thing that I would want to see from the budget is a push to innovation. I think going
Yes.
ahead, if you look at innovation and how you can create IP in the Indian economy, rather than just look at the traditional sectors of labor intensive and all that, I think those things will take care of themselves. There will be massive changes because of AI as it gets implemented further. So you have to create those quality jobs, and you have to let people know that they can aspire to be in India and actually reach the heights that they want to, rather than always thinking that, we need to possibly go abroad. So I think a push on innovation along with the continued push on maintaining macro fundamentals and capital expenditure, that would do the economy, a solid on the positive side.
Indeed, good points. I mean, the inclusion of AI and taking into account technology, I think, has to be some provisions should be made more. I hope that is also taken into account. We also have joining us Mr. Ravi Saxena. He's the CEO of Wonder Chef, and he's also built iconic businesses such as the Landmark Group, the Gloria Jeans Coffee, and Fun City. So good to have you with us, Mr. Saxena. And just the preliminary words, from everybody. What are you expecting from the budget? We'll talk about delivery later of the past budgets, but first the expectations and the hopes.
Yeah, Priya, pleasure to be here on your show. First, my recommendation is to the channels that let's start these kind of discussions 3 months before the budget. Because now it's
Okay.
already locked and sealed. And
Yeah, you're right.
can't do anything about it. We can only hope what comes out of the little red book. But what I believe is that considering the geopolitical environment, we are in for a lot of more shocks. So I would say there are 3 or 4 key priorities. The first one is energy security, because that is what the world is playing on. That is what the US is trying. We can all understand that they're doing it for their own good. We know we are lacking in energy sources, and we have to absolutely do something about it, not only in the long run, but also in the short term. People have to believe that the government is moving in that direction in a very credible manner. And that is what will give confidence not only to the Indian markets, but also to the international investors whose money we need to grow. Second is the boosting of manufacturing. We cannot shy away from that. Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with the Rishi in terms of high-tech products, innovation, and AI. But the millions of jobs that need to be created in India will not be only in the high-tech, will not be only in the GCCs. They have to be in the manufacturing. Otherwise, all these free trade agreements are meaningless. Then we need to continue to enhance our capital flows. And for that, we need to take care of to some extent, if I may use the word tax terrorism, because that still abounds not only for Indian companies, but also for international companies. And all the good that we do over the years gets destroyed by a few bad examples. So absolutely, the capital inflows have to be there. We have to minimize trade disruptions, because as we often say in India, that Indian businesses succeed not because of the government, but despite it. I think this has to become a distant memory. A lot of good has been done in the last 10, 12 years, but still a lot needs to be done at the execution level. At the policy level, I think we are going quite well in the right direction. But at the execution level, when we deal with the people on ground day to day, especially when we are in manufacturing in the factories, I think it's still a lot of things. And my final point, Priya, is that I want to remind our viewers of the most successful company ever to be created on this earth. And that was the East India Company, right? Which gave dividends for hundreds of years non-stop to its shareholders, ruled over 50 countries. And their philosophy was simple. Take raw material, process it, and sell it to those markets. What we are doing in India is we are making our raw material more expensive. There are duties on our raw material. We don't have proper, well-priced aluminum, copper, steel, which are the basics of any business. And you know what? We have mines for these things. We have world-class resources, but these materials are expensive. So if our processing of these raw materials is expensive, or somebody is making undue profits, we have to allow imports of these material so that our finished goods, the value-added goods, can be competitive in the global markets. Otherwise, whatever we do, we can squeeze the labor dry, but we will not be competitive.
Well, excellent points. In fact, you were not here when the earlier speakers spoke, but you are quite in resonance with them as well, especially Dr. Doshi. I think manufacturing is important. Help
Yeah,
our
great minds think
manufacturers.
alike, and me and Doshi share the same alma mater, so no wonder that
I
we.
am Ahmedabad, yes, I noticed.
Okay.
So, in fact, a lot of the points are there, and I think I did a show earlier on the challenge from Chinese imports. The whole in terms of our anti-dumping laws, etc. So, manufacturing sector has really been ignored and needs help in India, really.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we'll keep facing that problem also of jobless growth that is happening. Also, I'm going to take a break and come back and keep this conversation going. I have a set of excellent speakers on the panel, so stay with us. Hello and welcome back to the Newsx Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, with a few hours ready to go before the budget, the countdown has begun, and I know we're a little late, as one of my panelists pointed out. But let's see where, the budget, also as Dr. Doshi said, is a marker of the policy intent of the government. So let's see, Dr. Doshi, in terms of, our biggest challenge, what would you say is, the global environment, the Chinese imports, too much regulation, maybe ease of doing business, as you pointed out, is the need of the hour. So are these, anything else that you would like to add or react to what the others have said?
I think our biggest challenge is that we need to be competitive. We need the world market to be able to growing fast, and therefore we need to be competitive in the world market. And today we are facing a very fierce competitor in China. They are a super efficient machine. They have found a way to win in sector after sector, build scale. And unfortunately, while we have made a lot of progress, if this were a race, right, we were probably running a 100-meter race in 15 seconds. And now we are running it in 12 seconds. But that's no good if our competitor is running it in 10 seconds. So
Right.
we need to be better or as good as our closest competitor to win here. And hence, we cannot relax. I would commend the government for a lot of steps in the positive direction, but more needs to be done. I talked about some deregulation. I think the global headwinds, trade, etc., don't help. But I think if I were to lay out priorities, EU FTA, great thing. We need to get our US trade deal done so that our companies do not face unnecessary burden.
Correct.
Second, if we think about competitiveness of our exports, talking about manufacturing exports, because that's where lots of jobs are, as Ravi mentioned, we need to make sure that our companies get raw materials at competitive prices, and hence, the customs duties need to be at a level at which it doesn't hinder competitiveness, and therefore I'm expecting some reforms in that direction, rationalization of duties in particular. Third, on the labor front, new labor codes have been announced. And this has given states flexibility to be much more liberal with their labor regime. I would like to see some states take this opportunity and now create an environment in which, let's say, firms, while the central threshold has been raised to 300, states which want labor intensive manufacturing should raise it much further. They have been given flexibility on some other dimension. They should use this flexibility to further liberalize their labor environment so that manufacturing is attracted to those states. So that's labor. Third is power. That is also a source of competitive disadvantage. Again, some recent reforms have been done. I would like to see a stronger push, both carrot and stick approach for states, so that they should go for large scale privatization of power distribution and completely remove this cross subsidization from industry to domestic and agriculture. If we want to subsidize domestic and agriculture, it should be done directly from budget and not at the expense of industry, because it makes us uncompetitive. Fourth sector is logistics. Again, we should be transporting goods at much lower cost through rail, but because of cross subsidization, our rail freight is very expensive. So I would like to see that removed. And fifth and final one is taxation, where I'm not expecting reduction in tax rate, but definitely much more simplification so that foreign investors in particular do not see it as a hurdle in investing in India. Hope that we see some gifts on one or more of these fronts.
Well, I hope so too. And, for me, your point on taxation is one that is really holding the most. I do hope that there is, at the end of the day, because the salaried class is still facing the burden, despite what they say. So I do hope that is taken into account. But, Dr. Verma, anything you want to add? And also, so if you're just looking, we all in media like labels. So is this going to be are you hoping for an investment-driven budget, consumption-driven budget? What is the need of the hour?
So I think before we go there, I think we did talk about a lot of manufacturing energy. I do
Yes.
resonate with them. But if we are thinking of being a developed India, I think we have to be self-reliant on many of the things where we are still not. And it's just little, around 2 decades of time left. China has had much larger time play to develop its competence and strength. So right now, we did talk about using AI. I think the issue is not about using AI. The issue is how sovereign are we to use AI, as well as the IT in general. Are we dependent on the clouds and the technologies from the West? Because as long as we are, at no point of time we can call ourselves completely independent and sovereign. That's point number one. Point number two is still we are far away from manufacturing on the higher end of engineering, the Boeings and the missiles, and the level of technical supremacy which China has developed in the last 2 decades, whether it is in terms of defense, which we saw in the last year, how they have made it and at what price they have made it. I think this is the second area where India needs to start thinking of right now. These will give
Mm.
much larger returns after a decade, not now, possibly. So there may be a burden on the budget as far as it is concerned for the next decade or so. But that's where we are going to save our foreign, our foreign, our money over there, rather than purchasing it from the West. The third thing, I think energy was being talked about. I think India has a good story in developing and being self-reliant on the energy, especially the solar part. I think compact nuclear reactors also are something which we haven't been able to scale it up, but that's another area where if we are able to do it, I think that's going to give us a good, strong backbone for us to become developed India. The
Okay.
fourth thing which I wanted to talk about is we have been talking about the mother of all deals, but still it's rather than just having the euphoria over it. I think there are lots of things to be done. Especially this has to be ratified by country by country. That's one. The second is non-tariff barriers have not been talked about. So CBAM stuff is still kept open-ended. How it will get resolved, I don't know. That's another area of concern which India has to take note of and get it addressed with the European Union, especially when we are going to export our product to Europe. These
Mm.
non-tariff barriers may hit us even if we have this FTA with them. So these are
Okay.
a few things coming, whether it is
Okay.
investment or consumer
But
driven.
just
I
quickly, because I want to get the others in before we run out of time. So,
Sure. So I think we had our stint on the consumer budget by in the last year we have been focusing on that. It is going to give us return only in a short run. I think longer term returns will come from investment driven budget, and that's what I would be hoping for in terms of in a longer duration. That's what's going to give us return.
thank you so much, Dr. Verma. Mr. Shah, what your take on what the others have said also, and anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was just saying that, I have maybe a slight difference of opinion with some of our, participants and panelists here. I believe that, the government has done enough on, at least on some of the taxation front, at least with the GST reform and, with the income taxes also. They would want to just sort of wait and see how that plays out over the because it's just been barely a year for the income tax part of it, not even a year, and for GST maybe a quarter. You would like to see how things are playing out, and they then decide on that. On the other side, I think the government will continue to focus on the fundamental factors of growth. That is, like is pointed out earlier, capital investment, infrastructure, the ease of doing business. When I say ease, it's not just on paper, genuine ease to ensure that businesses are celebrated and we don't look down upon somebody who's earning money. I think that they are creating the jobs. We should sort of, go all out for that. We need to celebrate our businesses that way. The other aspect I think we should look at is something to do with quality. The
Yes.
time is run out wherein you can actually compete with the China. Let's be very clear. You can't have, it's an autocratic sort of, rule there. You are a democracy. You have certain constraints. You will have to deal with those. You cannot do that at that scale. Where are your markets? What do you really want to concentrate on? You need to sort of, identify those. So largely, these are some of the aspects which I think will be done. The one important point that I will sort of point out is a lot of the metrics that you will see coming out of the budget in terms of the fiscal deficit, in terms of the levels of debt, they will change over the next month as you get the new GDP series, which will account for a more realistic measure of where the GDP stands. You will see that while the percentage growth in GDP may not change that much, the overall quantum of GDP is likely to go up. Once that happens, your overall debt levels and everything start to look much more sanguine. Your states will have much more, sort of, space to borrow. So that will sort of, play out. So we're comfortable from that macroeconomic perspective also. It's some of these qualitative aspects that we will possibly want to focus on more.
Thank you. And Ravi, last word to you really on what others have said and anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think a lot of interesting points have been there. I'll just say that money makes the world go round. And we have two sources of money, the domestic investor and the international investors. So whatever we do and all the good points that we have to implement in terms of manufacturing and infrastructure and AI, money is needed. And how do we ensure people, how do we give them assurance that this money is safe? So on one hand, when geopolitics is making everyone nervous, I think predictability matters more than incentives. So we have to move away from the very election oriented, the yojanas and the giveaways and all that, because the
Yes.
tax-paying class is worried about all that, and we have
I
to
could
push,
not agree with you more. Sorry.
and we have to push domestic savings into productive assets, like pensions or insurance or bonds, which become investors in that sense, and even AFIs. And this is for the domestic money. And for the international capital, I think, again, we have to be fiscally prudent, like we have been. But in these uncertain global conditions, the fiscal credibility will be the competitive advantage of India. We are already on a good wicket. We have a good image, like the EU president also recently said. But we have to walk that talk, and we have to make sure that the monies which come into India is not just hot capital, but coming in for long-term investments in projects. And I think if we have the right capital flows and create the right environment, we can be there.
On that note, thank you so much. This really was a very fascinating discussion. I learned a lot. So thank you all for this conversation. And well, fingers crossed on February 1st. Let's see what happens. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the Newsx YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.